And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck with you. Buck, what is going on, man?
Not too much, DJ, after a very eventful Miami Pro Day, which was great because there were a lot of people that obviously had a chance to see us kind of talk about Cam Ward and all things the U. I had a chance to, dig a little deeper in some notes. I had a chance to scribble some stuff from Mock Draft Live because Mock Draft Live comes on tonight. And
Nice.
So just getting excited for all the things that are all the things during the month leading up to the draft.
So I've cheated. I've given some teasers on Move the Sticks about a mock draft that had not yet been released. I'm not saying you need to give us a little something, but I mean I think a little teaser is.
Let's see a little teaser. So, 2 quarterbacks in the top 5, 3 running backs in the class in the first round.
Okay.
2 of those running backs in the top 10.
Oh, okay.
Based on conversation that you and I have had maybe about a certain team sitting at number 10, the Chicago Bears.
Yep.
And then a whole slew of defensive frontline people going in the first round. Only 2 wideouts. Only had 2 wideouts in the first round.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up the wideout thing because that's a topic I'm going to get to here in just a little bit because I want to have a conversation about what we expect in terms of some of the numbers at these positions in the first round. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But right now it's time for the lead block presented by T-Mobile for Business. Football needs a network willing to go the extra yard. So do you. Go further with T-Mobile for Business. You mentioned the Cam Ward Pro Day, Buck. Let's start there. I will say this about pro days. I'm trying to say this without crushing pro days. I think it's valuable to see quarterbacks throw live. I think there's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that the bar is, it's very low here. Let's just get out there. Let's see it come off your hand a little bit. It wasn't the best pro day that we've seen. I mean, there's at the end of the workout, maybe the last third of the workout, I think there were some balls.
Could have done away with
a little bit. But yeah, and it was that long. It was just really, really long. It didn't necessarily need to be that long. But he didn't do anything to hurt himself. I think he came into this process as the likely favorite to be the number 1 overall pick, and I thought he left the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are a Cam Ward fan, he showed all the things that led to your fandom. If you are a believer that Cam Ward should be the number 1 overall pick, there was nothing that happened in the performance that would dissuade you from taking him number 1 overall. I'm going to say this, and I understand that I'm the dissenting voice because, I just see Shedeur Sanders as a better player right now than Cam Ward. But here's what I'll say about Cam Ward. I don't want this to get lost in the noise that is the noise of X and social media. Cam Ward is a phenomenal prospect. Cam Ward has tools, talent, tenacity that I absolutely love. Cam Ward, what he was able to do going from Incarnate Ward to Washington State to Miami, that should be celebrated. Cam Ward taking over the U program and really putting his leadership, his personality, all of that on the team. I love it. And I think in the right environment, this dude can be a star in the league because you just don't see guys that can spin it like he spins it. I know it comes out sidearm or whatever, but man, he is a ball. And you go through 4 years of his work, 5 years of his work. There's not everything is impressive when it comes to it. The thing that you want to see from him is if he can just tighten up some of the gameplay, like know when to be the gunslinger, know when to dial it back. That's really the only argument that I can make against Cam Ward. Because when you watch him play, he has all of the traits that you look for. The only thing that you would say is, hey, he can get a little loose. If he tightens that part up in an environment where you give him talented playmakers and protection, look, man, this dude is a stud, and he's a stud, and that was verified on the pro day. And look, it's backed by a lot of tape from multiple schools where he's been a dominant player from day one.
Yeah, and to me, you look at it, and you look at Tennessee, and we talked about this a little bit on the pro day coverage, and how they've built their team. They've really tried to invest in the offensive line, and I think a lot of people have looked at that and have made the comment of, they're investing in the offensive line to be able to protect a rookie quarterback, first overall pick in Cam Ward. And when we dug into it and looked at the strengths of those players that they've brought in along the offensive line, Those guys, for the most part, are better in the run game than in the pass game. I think this is going to be a commitment when you've got a head coach who's the son of an offensive line coach. This is going to be a commitment to, hey, we're going to run the ball. We're going to take some pressure off of this young quarterback. No, stop worrying about let's protect him. No, let's take the ball to his hands a little bit here. Let's be physical. Let's run the football and ask less of him. That seemed to be what they're doing to me.
Yeah, they are doing that, but I also think something that we talked about at length on the show, Cam Ward's quick hand transitions. Cam Ward, as David Cutcliffe taught us, he has middle infielder hands in terms of catch to throw is super quick. Is blazing coming out. And then when you put the RPO game in, we talked about Tua Tagovailoa being the Las Vegas blackjack dealer, just spinning it all over. Well, Cam Ward has that. That plays well with Tennessee's commitment to the running game because now your creativity extends beyond the traditional under center run game too. Hey, we can go shotgun, put Tony Pollard in a sidecar position. We can run some of these things that we've seen elite quarterbacks run early in their careers until they were able to handle some of the other stuff. That RPO game with Cam Ward could be phenomenal if the Tennessee Titans have a couple things. One, the commitment to the run with a running back like Tony Pollard. And two, I think that slot receiver position becomes one that is super important because that's the guy that you run into bang slant to. That's the guy that you run into quicks to. I like Treylon Burke when he was coming out. It has to be somebody dynamic. I would look for them to get someone that can handle that part of it. If we're building it around Cam Ward, you got Calvin Ridley on one side. I think that slot receiver, whoever that slot receiver is, he needs to be a dynamo because you're going to put a lot on him to catch a lot of passes on this RPO game that I would think that the Tennessee Titans would feature.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And his hand quickness is exceptional, and that was on display at the Pro Day, and it's littered all over his film. I was thinking about this with him and the Titans. Tell me if I'm missing somebody, Buck, but I would say just if we're talking talent, when we talked about how does Cam Ward stack up with previous number one overall picks and previous quarterback classes, let's put that to the side. Let's look at where he would stack up with the Tennessee Titans and their history and where they've been. Unless I'm missing somebody off the top of my head, I think he's more talented than Ryan Tannehill. I think he has more tools. Not Ryan Tannehill is a good athlete. Obviously, he's a former wide receiver. He could move around and all those things. He's got more RPMs. He's got way more arm to me than Ryan Tannehill did. Tannehill's a bigger guy, but I think you got to go back to McNair. I don't know who was as talented as him going back to Steve McNair. You know, I would take Steve McNair. I was around him with Baltimore. Steve was and that was at the end of his career. Steve was still very, very talented.
I would go there. Like people are talking about Vince Young, but VY didn't have the passing talent that this guy has. This dude is a stud when it comes to throwing. And, you know, like we rarely talk about Steve McNair when we talk about the Tennessee Titans. Like we just, you know, his tragic loss and those things. But DJ, that's actually a nice person to bring up because you were around Steve McNair, and anyone who has played against or been around Steve McNair understands the fierce competitor he is. For that organization, Cam Ward will give you some of that, a lot of that, but I would say in even a rougher, rawer package than Steve McNair, because McNair appeared to be a little more refined with his leadership ability. With Cam Ward, you're getting that A-level alpha dog competitor. And when I think about those teams in Tennessee when McNair was the focal point, man, they talked about them being the Tennessee Tyrants and how they used to physically beat up people. To me, it's a return to that kind of team if Cam Ward is your QB1. Not only what he does as a player, but his personality certainly matches when that franchise was at its best, when they were playing bully ball on opponents in the AFC South.
Yeah, I think that McNair was, especially younger McNair, was a better athlete than Cam. And I would say Dante Culpepper was a better athlete than Cam. But I think the thing that those guys, the trait that they haven't, that they share is that they're sturdy and strong. And I know Cam's a little, you know, he's a little bit shorter. He's under 6'2", but he's so strong, kind of pulling through guys. I saw that with McNair even late in his career. Guys kind of just fell off of him. He was able to just get away from people and just stand firm, and then didn't need a lot of foot space around him, had plenty of arm to be able to drive the ball. Culpepper, I played against him in college, but I mean, I saw him all throughout his career. Same thing. He was so strong, and then you didn't need a lot of room. The one that's so those are the top end, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say in that same style, that same family of sturdy quarterbacks, I think of a guy you're going to be familiar with, and that's David Garrard, who
Oh,
had
that's
a
a good
nice
one.
run and was again. I just think of Garrard was a real strong, sturdy guy.
And it's an underrated skill in the pocket, DJ, because one of the things about playing quarterback, you obviously know, having played it, DJ, can you stand in there and withstand, I would say, the little bumps and bruises that
Yeah.
can throw you off and still deliver on time? The thing about Cam that shows up on tape, not only his ability to throw from variety of platforms, right? But within the pocket, throwing around the traffic and the chaos, getting the ball out, while also having people draped on it. You talked about that contact balance and being firmly planted in the ground. There is something to that that can be an underrated skill or trait that we evaluate when we're kind of going through this process of looking at quarterbacks and why some guys make it and why some guys don't. Sometimes it's just as simple as being strong and sturdy enough to maintain your balance and body control in the midst of chaos.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's talked about enough, and I think that you live in a world where, especially the ball's coming out quick, but teams on edge, in terms of evaluating edge rushers and drafting edge rushers, crushing the pocket has become the focus. It's too long to get up the field and win. Teams are trying to get through you, so you're playing in a restricted environment. So how do you perform within that restricted environment? I think there's something to that.
So I heard this conversation, and I'll send a shout out to a podcast, Glue Guys. Alex Smith was talking to Jared Goff, and they were talking about all the transition things that you have to get used to going from college to the pros. And one of the things they talked about was the chaos within the pocket, how noisy the pocket is with all the clutter and the bodies and the 6'6", 300-pounders that are in your face, and how you have to be able to be calm and cool within that while also dealing with getting bumped around, and you're not going to be able to make every perfect throw where you can fully step into it. Do you have enough arm strength or balance to still make, I would say, strikes while kind of being knocked around? In that is one of the things that we certainly don't talk about when we're talking about evaluating the quarterback, how they handle the storm. When you're in the eye of the storm, how do you handle it? Does it swallow you up, or do you have a way of navigating through and still making accurate throws?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very important point. And that's, again, part of the discussion there with Cam Ward. That's a wrap for the lead block presented by T-Mobile for Business. Football needs a network willing to go the extra yards. So do you. Go further with T-Mobile for Business. All right, Buck. So here was my tweet. I'll make sure that I read it correctly here. This is, and I actually got a text message from a friend saying, "Do you know anything here?" And I said, "No, there's absolutely no basis, no information. I'm not trying to be tricky here and get something out there." But here is tell me if you agree with this. I miss the days when the Dallas Cowboys were aggressive and fun. Spice it up, trade up for Travis Hunter.
Ooh. Ooh.
Wouldn't that be just what that franchise needed? And it's a bold move. And people will say, "Oh, well, how much you're going to give up and what's it going to cost?" I'm just telling you, this team, even though they had those 3 years of winning 12 games, there's nothing. There's no spark with this team right now. Let's get some excitement, some juice. You go get aggressive. You go up and bring the first two-way player that we've seen in the NFL, and you throw him in there, and you let Dak work with him on offense with CeeDee Lamb. And then you let him play a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, however you want to divvy up the time there. But he can at least do a little bit on the other side of the ball, wherever you want to major him. But, man, it just feels like that was the 90s Cowboys. That was a go get Charles Haley, go get Deion Sanders. Like, whatever we got to do, make it happen. Even when they, swinging for Joey Galloway and trading multiple picks. Like, there's got to be a fun factor at some point in time. What's the point of owning the team if you don't want to have some fun, man? Just go for it. Just try it. If it doesn't work, what's the harm? You haven't been to a championship game in a billion years. What's the risk? Go for it.
DJ, I'll say this: you can never have too many good players, and you can never have too many star players, guys that can tilt the field in your favor. Travis Hunter is one of those guys who's an absolute star. He's a guy who can do it on either side of the ball, and we can talk about the raw nature of maybe his game on offense or maybe some of the lack of technical skills on defense. But what I do know is he is a playmaker in every aspect. Whenever he's on the field, good things happen. For the Dallas Cowboys, a team that I would say this, they're less talented right now than they were last year. This is a team that over a 2-year period, we've seen a lot of really good players walk out the door. Haven't seen many guys walk in the door. This is a team that if you're Brian Schottenheimer, you're trying to figure out how to kind of bring, I won't even say the glitz and glam back, but the wins back. Man, you need guys that can single-handedly flip it. Travis Hunter is one of those guys. Right now, DJ, when I look at their team, I see Michael Parsons as someone that can do that. I see CD Lamb. Who else?
Yeah.
I mean, so for a team that has always relied on star power to win, remember the big three, the triplets, came from watching the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
They need star power. It is something that they're lacking. Yeah, making it a very aggressive move for a Travis Hunter would give them a start and would kind of make them more like the teams that we're used to seeing in Dallas. We're not used to seeing blue-collar teams in Dallas. The only way for the Cowboys to win now, they have to morph into a blue-collar team. I don't know if that's what they're really built on.
I don't know. I look at the Philadelphia Eagles with, and I'll go Saquon Barkley, and obviously we know what Jalen Hurts is there and how great he played down the stretch and in the Super Bowl. But like that team runs through Saquon Barkley, he's an unbelievable player, but there's a star quality there. The Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels, there is a star quality there. Like that is a difference-making dude. And you saw how quickly that transformed their team. Now the Giants ended up moving off of one with Saquon Barkley. They're trying to find him. They got Malik Neighbors is dynamic. I mean, he's got a chance. Talent-wise, you could say Malik Neighbors could end up being the best receiver in the league. He's got that type of juice and talent. Now you look at the Dallas Cowboys, and Micah Parsons on the defensive side of the ball. Yes, he's an elite player. CeeDee Lamb is up there as a top 5 wide receiver. Man, you would add so much juice, and you could deploy it in so many different ways with Travis Hunter, and it would just make them an exciting brand of football. And to have that type of talent, you think about the value. If you add up, the value he could give you if he's playing at least a chunk on both sides of the ball. On a rookie deal, Buck, like he would be the most valuable in terms of like financially valuable player in the NFL if that were the case.
It would be the case. He would be so valuable to them in so many different ways to be able to use him. And let's just think about this from a nostalgic standpoint, right? We saw his coach, Coach Prime, do it in Dallas, where he was a two-way starter for the Cowboys on a Super Bowl team. Started at wide receiver and cornerback for those Cowboys teams and was able to do it at a very high level. Travis Hunter, who Deion, by his own admission, has said he was a better player as a two-way player than he's ever been. Why not bring it back? I mean, why not give him an opportunity to be that star player, to move up and do it? Yeah, you have some glaring holes. Like, yeah, you need a guard to replace Zach Martin and those things, but you can find that. You don't have enough star power. And as I'm looking at your competitors in the division, we've always talked about being brought up in the business to build your team to win the division. I know this. You're not going to win 17, 14 games against the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles.
No.
You're going to have to find a way to put points on the board. If you can't put points on the board, you have no shot against those teams. The Cowboys have to look at how they're generating points on offense to be able to stay in these games with their opponents.
And people ask, well, how the heck, who's going to trade out? Who's going to make that move? Well, we've talked about the New England Patriots as a team that has many holes on offense and as enticing and intriguing as it would be. And I would probably just sit and pick and take Travis Hunter, knowing I've got offensive line needs. But man, we're just trying. We got to survive, Drake. But they could be of, and some people would say of the more sound philosophy, which is we're going to build big first. So we need an offensive tackle. We don't necessarily want to take one at 4. We don't feel like the value's there. We're comfortable with Will Campbell. We're comfortable with Mimbu. If we can go back to the Cowboys at 12, we feel good we're going to get one of those two guys. And maybe it even is a go back with a chance to move up a little bit to secure one of those tackles. But you're getting the tackle plus other picks and maybe a future one. You can make a case that New England would be willing to do that. So look, it's a bold move. I'm not saying it's without some risk there. I just feel like the Dallas Cowboys have gotten stale. It's just like a bland piece of white toast. Like let's do something to try and get some flavor back in this organization. Get your fan base excited, man.
That would be a very exciting move. That would certainly be one that would put them on the map. Look, man, it's something to consider when you're the Cowboys. And look, not that they ever kind of fall out of the national spotlight or the radar. but there's not as much buzz about the Cowboys as we're used to seeing. That would certainly be a buzzy move to kind of maybe generate some interest in Dallas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, last thing we're going to do on here today is I had Jack pull these numbers. He does it for me every year of the average number of players drafted at positions. So I want to rip through some of these quick, and you tell me if you think we're going to be on the high end or the low end of that, right? So
right.
If we look at quarterbacks over the last 5 NFL drafts, we've averaged 3.8 quarterbacks in the first round. So we'll round up in this exercise. So 4 first round quarterbacks, yes or no?
Ooh. No. I'm gonna say 3.
I think we get 3. I'm
I think we
with
get
you
3.
on that. Running back wise, the average has been 1 in the first round.
Oh, I'm gonna take the over on that. I think we
Yep.
surpassed that. 2 at a minimum, maybe 3.
Yep, I'm with you on that one. All right, here we go. Wide receivers. How about this number? 5.6 we've averaged going in the first round. Over 5 receivers going in the first round on average.
Wow, I'm taking the under on that. Man,
Yeah.
I look at DJ. There's some scenarios where I think maybe only 1 goes in the first round.
Yeah,
Like
I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah, this year is definitely not the year for the wideout.
Yeah, I will say we get 3, 2 to 3. Tight ends 0.6. So I mean,
we're getting 2.
We're
so
getting
over.
2.
Yeah, we're getting 2.
Offensive tackles. The offensive lineman can get kind of tricky, but that's 5.6. I don't
know.
I don't know if I see 6.
I guess it depends because I feel like there's so many guys that are multi-positional guys. So, for instance, Zabel from North Dakota State. Are we saying he's a tackle?
I have
He's
him
a
as an
center.
interior guy.
So that's where it gets tricky for me. But in terms of pure offensive tackles, guys that
5.
we don't project, I don't think we go above that number.
I got 5. So Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons, Josh Connerly. I think
he's the one. He's the last. He's the
Yeah.
last one to potentially get in. So yeah, that's 5.
Yeah. So that would give you 5. All right. Interior offensive lineman, if you combine the guards and centers, would be 1.4. So saying 2. The interior offensive lineman, I have Booker and Zabel, and then Donovan Jackson could be.
There's 3. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, so I think we're in that. I think we're in the money on that one.
2 to 3. DTs is going to be over. There's 2 on average.
Yeah, we're
is that
we're
crazy?
Over that.
Only 2?
Here's what I think is crazy, and we do this and we see this happen all the time. I think early in the process we always kind of overrate the run stoppers, the nose tackles, and they tend to go in the second round. But this year, DJ, we have some interior pass rushers with quickness, wiggle, burst. And coming on the heels,
I say way over, Buck, but then I'm going through it and I'm like, well, I could see some of these guys. We see D tackles, to your point, slide to the second round on some of these.
Yeah, like so like you guys like a Kenneth Grant, who's more of a run player than a man. Do you wait top of the second and say maybe that's more his landing spot as opposed to the bottom of the first with some other things? Man, that might be a push. We might be sitting right there too. It might be a push because we got Walter Nolan and whoever else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you've got Grant. I've got Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, and Walter Nolan I don't think is a lock. He's my 32nd player. I have Harmon in there, so I think Harmon goes. Yeah. I think Graham and Harmon I'd feel good about. That's 2, and then you start getting to Grant, Walter Nolan. Like now, I think those are maybes. You know.
And there's this row right at the bottom of the first round with teams that could, but where they put a trigger. So when you think about Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, like they're 3 teams that have a need, or how pressing varies, but there's a need where you can plug them in to that spot. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it looks like.
Defensive ends and linebackers are 2 different things here. So in the linebackers, that ends up getting muddy because some of those guys are edge rushers, some of them are off the ball. So I usually try and combine that and say between defensive ends and linebackers. So Jihad Campbell could go into that pile. It would be 6.8 if you add those. So
I'm confident we surpass. I think we surpass.
Yeah.
There are too many guys. There are too many guys that can get after the passer.
Yeah, so I'm Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, Mike Green, James Pierce, Shamar Stewart, Donovan Izaruku, And then that's not even counting Jihad Campbell as a linebacker. I mean, I think we get on the north side of that number.
Can we pass him?
And then two more here. Corners, 4.4 is the average for the corners going in the first round. So if I give you the names, at least as I have them, I've got Barron, Will Johnson, Max Hairston, Trey Amos, and then it gets to Azaria Thomas, Ben Morrison. I think Barron, Johnson, those are only two, and actually I have in my top 32. So we maybe. I think Trey Amos has a shot and Harrison has a shot. I think those are the four guys who have a chance to go in the first round.
I only feel good about two of those. I can only lock in two.
Under. Don't you think we go? I
only feel good about. I feel about Barron and Johnson. Those are the only two that I feel good about. Okay, they're gonna hear their name called. The other guys, I think it's tricky. 25 to 40 is normally where those that run on corners goes at some point. Yeah. And I know, like, we got really excited about Harrison after the combine. We got excited about some of these guys after we saw them run and move around. But then when reality hits and you look at, supply and demand, man, bigs typically dwarf littles when it comes to first round. Hey, let me get the big early. I can come back and get someone that's comparable on the perimeter. I feel like that is going to be the debate and the conversation in a bunch of rooms.
Yeah, and the last one, safeties, is 0.6. So I haven't even averaged a safety in the first round. I mean, we're going to get – I feel good. Well, here's the thing, though. Safeties are another position that a lot of times you see the Brian Branches and, like, some of these other guys, that McKinney, I think, went in the second round. Like, guys that you thought for sure were going to be first-round picks doesn't always necessarily go that way.
No, I don't feel like – the only one I feel good about is Eamon Warren.
Eamon Warren, yeah.
Yeah, Eamon Warren. He's the only one that I feel good about. Okay, I'm confident that he's going to go on. Malachi Starks, I think, is a baller.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to have the conversation about him that we have about Brian Branch. We knew he was a good player based on tape, but for whatever reason, we couldn't take him in the first. So you get him in the second, and you watch him play, and you're like, man, he should have been a first-round player. Yeah. Yeah. Very similar. I think Starks is that.
Yeah, and I'm going to do some more work on Xavier Watts too. I do not have him in that range, but man, a lot of teams really love him. So I'm going to.
The only thing that I'll say about him is, man, see ball, get ball. He's always around it. The ball kind of finds it. He's kind of rock solid when it comes to it, but I still see him as a second round. I don't see him as a first round player. Now we come from the scouting thing where second round means like, look, he's a starter.
Yeah.
He's a starter. He starts maybe from day one. I see him as a really smart player, high IQ player that can make plays in the middle of the field, can tackle and all those things. I can't say that I see special. I see you're a really, really good football player.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting to see where those guys go. So that's a fun little exercise there. We'll at a later episode, I'll kind of give you the numbers on the second and third round. So the day two guys, the numbers that we normally see there. Spoiler alert: day two was the linebacker day and the wide receiver day. Second, third round, just one little nugget there. We see 10 apiece, 10 receivers, 10 linebackers go in the second and third rounds. That is a lot.
That is a lot. But to me, it makes sense because that's where the track meet. You normally see wide receivers, DBs, all those guys, the fast guys go. You don't want to pay a premium first-round talent, but you think you can find a comparable mate in the second and third round. That's why day two is full of those guys.
Yep, 8.4 corners to your point in the second day. So, all right, this has been a fun one, Buck. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, man. Look, we're almost a month away from the draft.
We're inside a month.
Yeah, how quickly it comes, and all the conversations that we'll start having about, trying to get the guys in the right house, get them in the neighborhood. Now it's time to get them in the house.
That's what I'm doing. You see my little cards here? These are my little thoughts I got to kind of sort out here. That's my projects for the next couple days. All right, this has been a fun one. I appreciate you guys hanging with us. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.